when I sent that stuff on Chippewa. It just came up with me when he sent it out there, so I shared it.
Okay, you're now live.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the meeting on the Committee Administration for the Dunn County Board. Today we have a number of staff, our committee members, and at this point I'd like to take roll call of our committee. John Calabrese.
Here.
Sheila Story.
Here.
Jim Tripp.
Here.
Myself, Dave Bartlett.
Here.
Again, myself, I'm Vaughn Headland, committee chair. Next, approval of minutes. The last meeting was held April 13th, and last meeting was April 22nd. We also need to approve minutes from April 13th meeting. Anyone move for that?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Moves. Sheila Story seconds. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none. All in favor of approval of minutes of April 13th and April 22nd, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Passes. Any public comment?
There was no public comment.
Thank you much, Krista. Staff reports. Again, our staff has reported a monthly report that came into the packet for all the committee members. Do any of the committee have any questions for the staff on the reports?
Mr. Chair, I would like to note for the record, you have staff reports from your county manager, from the deputy county clerk on behalf of our new county clerk, Andrew Marcel, who's with us today in the meeting. We have one from Sarah Benedict, our criminal justice collaboration coordinator, from Keith Stray, our CFO, from Dan Dunbar, our CIO, from Heather Murray, our human resources director, from Sophia Jevney, our treasurer. This is the first one from her. She's also with us at the meeting today. And so any questions on any of those, we should be able to field.
Okay, if not, I would like to officially welcome those new staff members. Sophia? Andrew? Welcome to Committee on Administration. Next, any items replaced at the request of the chair? I had nothing special this month. At this point, I would like to entertain the possibility of moving item 8 up to this point for its consideration due to some time constraints by those people involved. Is there any objection to that? Okay, hearing none, then we will go to consideration report resolution ordinance to the county board from the Committee on Administration, resolutions approving budget adjustment for the neighbors of Dunn County and public health.
Need a motion.
Need a motion for that.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. John Calabrese moves.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
We have a second. Sheila Story seconds. Okay, discussion.
Just very quickly, Mr. Chair, this is the budget adjustment that's necessary to carry out what was already authorized by the county board earlier this month in terms of a one-time payment from provider relief funds provided by the federal government for extraordinary expenses related to COVID. And the providers in this case are the members of our public health department and the neighbors of Dunn County, both of whom had to deal with extraordinary circumstances over the past year and a half in terms of the amount of work they had to do, the shifts they had to do, the PPE that they had to carry out or wear. In particular, for instance, with the neighbors, it was quite extensive, and we managed to very well contain COVID spread within the neighbors. We had some incidences that could have been far, far worse. Needless to say, it required a considerable amount of overtime on many people's part and hardship on all of those employees' parts dealing with that. So these monies in the total amount of $393,546 are intended as a one-time payment and a compensation for that extraordinary effort.
And this is something that has been previously approved.
Yeah, this is the necessary budget adjustment.
Right, but there's some to cover that payment of those monies.
Is this in our packet? I didn't see it.
Yes, it was.
Oh, what page?
This was a
Last one.
separate
Second to last.
distribution.
In fact, the last item.
Oh, I've got nothing following the vouchers.
No, if I can.
Did you
Mr.
send it
Chair,
out
This
separate?
was sent out as a separate
that's
right.
supplemental
Oh, okay.
email
Separate
on May
email.
21st.
Okay.
Then I just added it to my packet. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you. Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I just wondered if I was missing some materials here.
Anyone have any questions on that? If not, all those in favor of making the appropriate budget adjustments so that those funds can be paid out, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes, and that'll adjust our budget appropriately.
It will go forward to the executive committee. Actually, the executive committee is the one that will have to forward this resolution. So it'll go to the executive committee in June for action and adoption by the county board in June.
All right. Next, we're going to go back to then 7A, and that is approve a contingency fund request from the medical examiner. Again, that was included in the packet. Do I have a motion for that?
So
I would make a motion to that effect.
Okay, Sheila Story, second by you, Jim. Is that okay?
that's fine.
All right,
Thank you.
second by Jim. Tripp. Questions, comments?
Just initial comments, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Sure, please, if you would.
So first, as a general reminder to the members of the Committee on Administration, the contingency fund by county code is something that the Committee on Administration determines. What we have done, what we do with the contingency fund is it's intended to address issues which are emergencies that need to be addressed now that we can't wait on the normal budget cycle to address, or time-sensitive opportunities that also we cannot wait on the normal budget process to address. So that's what contingency fund is, generally the standards to which they're held. In this case, the medical examiner, Marcy Rosas, who is here today and available to answer any questions, came to us with an issue related to being understaffed. Marcy is salaried, the chief deputy medical examiner is salaried, and other than that, it's all very part-time persons who are restricted to the total number of hours that they can work during a year. Many of them, bear in mind that the medical examiner's office is joint between Dunn County and Eau Claire. Many of those part-time medical examiners are dedicated to Eau Claire. In this case, however, we have to provide on-call service. The medical examiner's office does 24/7, 365. When there is attrition in the ranks of the deputy medical examiners, even when there's not, there are times when there's nobody available to be on call but our full-time staff, medical examiner Marcy and the chief deputy. One of those times is coming up here in June, and the best that Marcy was able to schedule had she or Lynn on call, her on call, every day except for one weekend. That's unreasonable and unsustainable. If we demand that much of our staff, we won't have staff to demand it. It simply cannot be sustained. For that reason, along with the recognition that we do need to address staffing, the proposal was made to add another chief deputy medical examiner, a salaried individual who could help fill some of those gaps and relieve the other two who are having to fill it whenever it's needed to be filled, the on-call service. Right now, the chief deputy medical examiner that we have, 80% of the salaries and benefits are paid by Eau Claire, 20% by Dunn County. It's a recognition or a reflection of the number of calls relative. In this case, what's driving the need for another salaried individual is not the number of calls, it's the need for coverage. And so we worked it out that 80% of this cost would be borne by Dunn County, 20% by Eau Claire. I coordinated with my counterpart in Eau Claire County, Catherine Schauf. She was instantly on board. She said, this needs to be done. We've got a very good medical examiner's office, very good reputation, working very well for both counties. But what we can't lose sight on, I think, in deliberating on this request is it does work very well because they are extremely dedicated and they are making a considerable sacrifice in terms of their own personal lives. Their work-life balance is basically out of whack. It's too much is having to be devoted to work. And that's simply a formula for burnout. We don't want that to happen. So when Marcy explained all of this to me, we came up with this proposal. We'd like to use contingency fund to bring on board as soon as possible. She has one of her deputy medical examiners who she's thinking about promoting. The proposal then in front of the committee would be contingency funds for this year, a maximum amount of approximately $44,700 to create the new full-time position. Eau Claire would kick in the 20% that would be remaining. And then it's understood that the continuation of this new chief deputy position in 22 would be dependent upon it being approved as part of the budget for fiscal year 22. So we'll go through that hurdle in the normal budget process. That having been said, staff is requesting the endorsed or the approval of this contingency fund. Judiciary and Law met on Monday to talk it over. That is the oversight committee for medical examiner's office under normal circumstances, and recommended approval of the contingency request. The Committee on Administration was requested to approve the funding.
Okay. Any other comments? Jim, did you have anything?
What Paul said.
Okay, thank you. Questions? The committee have any questions? If not, we'll move forward with a vote on this. All those in favor of taking the funds from our contingency fund, which we control as the administration committee, and moving them forward to for the hiring or in promoting, I guess, hire into a new position of chief deputy for the remainder of this 2021 year. The numbers that all is related is for 2021. All those in favor of that, so we're saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Approval of another contingency fund request from the clerk of courts. Again, that request was in your packet. Any explanation, Jim?
So move.
So move. Second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second from Supervisor Story. All right, discussion or any background information somebody'd like to enhance this with?
I will let Paul do the explaining, but I will remark that both our current judges and our two new judges were in attendance at the meeting. And after the meeting the other night, we had an informal discussion. And one of the first things they said to me was, thank goodness you approved the request for this additional position, because it would be virtually impossible for the 3 judges that we will have in August to operate with 1 judicial assistant.
Paul, anything else like that?
Just some of the details for the record. The request is for approximately $13,000 of contingency fund to offset the costs for bringing on board a judicial assistant / paralegal for the judge's office. It was not in the budget. It is due to retirement. So the need is profound. We are seeing 2 new judges, 1 brand new in terms of the position, and have to have the staff support. And as before, every position is considered as part of the regular annual budget process. So continuing into 22 will be part of that discussion. This is necessary for the remainder of the year. And Katie Shaley, our clerk of courts, is online and watching and frowning at me as I fumble around with her explanation. You're welcome to add anything, Katie.
No, I think you did a good job, Paul. This was just due to an unexpected retirement. We did not know that the individual was going to retire. It's a very small office with a limited budget. Therefore, there wasn't enough funds to do the payout, and it's detrimental to have the position be filled. So we're hoping to replace the 1 employee that's retiring, and this new one will start in August.
Thank you, Katie. Anyone have questions? Jim? Sure.
I would just remark that one of the remarks that I made at Judiciary and Law is that the contingency fund, as Paul mentioned earlier, is used for emergencies or opportunities. This constitutes an emergency in that with a small number of people, it's impossible to predict retirements. And when they occur quickly like this, there is just no chance to build that into the budget. Many of you might remember I have voted against contingency requests in the past for exactly these reasons. So it's not just that this comes from Judiciary and Law. This does constitute an emergency. There was no way to predict this retirement, and with a 2-person, in essence, workforce here, couldn't budget that. It wouldn't make sense.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else? If not, all those in favor of using contingency funds to meet this need? And again, Paul, if you repeat the amount.
It is $12,950.
Okay, $12,950, which we spent for 2021. Take care of a retiring employee. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. And that'll take care of the contingency fund request for the clerk of courts. Item 7C on our agenda is to approve for the year 2021 budget an adjustment for CJCC. Sarah, did you want a motion, please? First.
So moved.
So move. Jim,
I'll second.
seconded by Dave, Chairman Bartlett. Okay, Sarah, if you would help us out.
Sure. Pleased to report that we did receive a State Department of Justice coronavirus emergency grant. It's really related to the safe operations of our courthouse and law enforcement and our jail facility. So under the CJCC, we held a meeting, informal meeting with our counterparts over at the Judicial Center, and really reached a consensus on what we wanted to use the funding for. So we were approved for 29 squad laptops for our Sheriff's Department. So IT will be helping us with that. We also received funding for a digital evidence storage and retrieval system, a cloud-based system for 1 year. So IT will be helping us with that as well. That'll benefit our DA's office and all the law enforcement entities out there. We're also going to be getting a filtration system for the Judicial Center. So it's really to cover the jail and the courtroom itself. We're getting 2 UV sanitation devices for use, portable use in the courthouse. And then we're going to get some squad size UV sanitation devices. So the request is just under 100 or just over 135,000. So we're hoping that you'll gladly accept the funds so we can get those things in place. The funding would start June 1st and it would need to be completed by the end of the year.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Sarah? Dave?
I see you have it broke down into 3 categories. The contractual and consulting service, is that total 88,879? Is that all for that system for the DA's office?
No, the DA's system is about $15,000 and the rest of this would be the squad laptops with the state contract. So
Oh.
both of those are contractual services, but essentially most of that would go to the IT laptops.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Tripp?
I have a follow-up question. Then that's the iCrime Fighter contract. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yes, for the digital evidence system. And we might not go with that iCrime Fighter brand name software, but a similar equivalent. Right now we have our sheriff and Menominee Police Department and our DA's office really examining the best system to use with our existing system that we have for records in both of those agencies.
And can you tell me what the, this is for a 1-year subscription. Is that divided equally between Menominee and the sheriff or the county, or?
No, it would be, the main
What I'm
holder would
looking
be,
I'm sorry, sir. Well, what I'm looking at is going forward, what are we going to expect over the next couple of years in terms of the cost of electronically managing these? They're mostly, if I'm not mistaken, video files, right?
yes, so that's what I understand as well. But as there's more and more digital evidence that law enforcement is collecting, it's becoming extremely difficult and expensive to store it on servers. So this really is a cloud-based subscription service that the DA's office would be the main holder, but then they would be able to have up to 100 users use the system for just under $15,000. And that was for the iCrime Fighter. The other alternatives might be, a little bit different as far as the number of users and the price. But we really just got 1 year. So, looking forward, if you did a multi-year contract, it was a little bit cheaper. But right now, we can't use that funding beyond the year. So we could only cover 1 year under this grant, but that's going to have to be some decisions that will need to be made and funding to really back that up. There could be additional state funding down the road if the state legislature passes the requirements for body worn cameras. So, there could be some funding that could follow some of the legislative changes that are out there.
Thank you, Sarah. Just to kind of fill in a little bit with the use of body cams by the Sheriff's Department has increased the amount of electronic evidence that needs to be stored, accessible, and sometimes cases provided to people. And this is an expensive proposition. However, using the cloud to do this is going to free up an awful lot of staff time. When I'm not going to say if, I'll say when, because it's almost inevitable that it has to happen. But we're looking at a trend that's pretty true in a lot of cases. But if you think about the use of the video from these body cams and how it has to be stored, the security on it, the availability that it has to be made available to prosecutors, defense attorneys, all kinds of folks. It's pretty complicated and it's not going to be free.
Sarah, will this contract go through the end of 2020, 2022?
I think it would be 1 year from the date of signing the contract.
All right, so it'd probably be half of next.
Anything else? Seeing nothing else. We need to approve this. And again, this money was actually part of a grant. And as Sarah said in her comments, is we need to approve the acceptance of the money, put it into our, increase our budget by that amount of money. So the expenses we've been talking about, the items we've been talking about could be purchased or contracts written. Okay.
One more question.
Yes.
Is there any expense to the county other than administration of this grant?
No, this is actually going to be saving money down the road. The replacements of those squad laptops were coming out of capital expenses. So we're going to be able to really kind of offshoot those expenses to get those this year. So it's actually saving the county money down the road. And, it will be, IT will certainly be helping, facilities will be helping. But these are, I think, really important improvements that make sense. So I think the administrative burden will be fairly low and kind of worth the effort.
Anything else? All right. All those in favor of this budget adjustment, and we'll pass this forward to the executive committee. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Well, thank you, Sarah, for all your help and explanations and time. Next on our agenda is we have a consideration to approve a benefits proposal for our HSA contributions. And also along with that, consideration of starting up a Nearsight clinic to serve the employees of Dunn County. We have a motion for this.
Am I the only one moving?
So moved.
Chairman Bartlett moves, seconded by Supervisor Jim Tripp. Okay, Heather, are you going to bring us up to speed on this one?
I am.
Okay,
I actually have a PowerPoint if that's okay.
that is fine, sure.
Seems like a lot of information. So thank you. I think during our benefits discussions last fall, I mentioned that I was working on a couple of these items. It's taken some time to get to the end, but I wanted to make sure that I had all of the information. So today I'm going to go over the HSA contribution, kind of the background, the proposed incentive amounts, the education proposal that's attached to it, and then the total cost, along with the Nearsight clinic partnership, what they have to offer, the locations, costs to the employees, what some advantages are, potential future cost savings, and then the cost of that proposal, along with, at the end, I'll talk about how to fund it and what our proposal is for that. So with that, HSA contributions, this was something several of the committee members and employees had asked about. Some of our surrounding counties offer contributions to the HSA accounts for employees. In general, they're attaching incentive options to them. So there was some benefit change impacts that really started driving some of this discussion. We continue to look at ways to assist employees in paying those out-of-pocket expenses and those maximum out-of-pocket expenses, as well as finding ways to reduce costs to the plan and the employees over time. I do need to apologize to Supervisor Tripp. I did find that Word made a correction on an HSA acronym. So
And on your word typo.
I apologize for that typo.
Pass the test.
Caught it myself. Just too late. So our proposed contribution amounts are for the first year, $750 to the single plan, if an employee elects the single plan, and then $1,500 to the family plan. Where do these numbers come from? We really looked at Barron, Chippewa, Eau Claire, both the city and the county, Pepin, Pierce, Polk, and St. Croix counties. In reality, only Polk and Eau Claire counties have high deductible HSA plans. The other counties had alternative plans that really weren't easy to compare to, and they are not making any contributions because they don't have the HSA plans. Currently, Polk is contributing $600 to their single plan and $1,200 to their family plan. Eau Claire is contributing to their higher deductible plan the amounts of the $750 and $1,500. So we felt like the $750 and $1,500 amounts really matched what's happening around us. So our employee education proposal, it really crosses into the Nearsight clinic proposal. We really believe that it's important to have an incentive tied to the contribution, have employees invest in their health care as well. And then we're also investing into their health plan. And we also took a step back, looked at what has worked in other organizations, and really feel like it's important to include the spouses in the incentive and the education plan as we move forward in trying to reduce costs to our health plan. So when we put the proposal together, we did include the employees and the spouse. What that would look like in 2022 is really kind of a two-part process. So an employee is going to attend a presentation. When this was put together, it needed to be virtually. Hopefully we can do in person. I feel like that would be a little bit more impactful. By Dr. Usher from Reform Medicine. And again, we'll get to that Nearsight clinic piece in a moment. He's going to go over what the services are that they offer, the benefits of utilizing the clinic. And then employees will be offered a 3-question survey that they would complete when it comes to HR, and they would receive that $375 for themselves attending that. We would also then, if they have a spouse on the plan, request that the spouse do the same thing, and that's where the other $375 for 1/2 would come from. The secondary piece of it is we know that employees, it's difficult to make a change when it comes to healthcare. And so we really want to try and introduce them to Reform Medicine. So it's simply a scheduling and attending an appointment with someone at Reform Medicine. And then bringing back something simply to say that they were in attendance, and they can sit there and stare at the doctor if they want. We're not putting in requirements other than to actually just see how easy it is to schedule and attend an appointment. And then the same would hold true for the spouse. And that is how in year 1, we would fund a portion of that HSA. And I think that covers then, it really hits both pieces of the new benefits that we would like to add for 2022. So as I mentioned, the idea is to get the employee and the spouse introduced to that new benefit. It's a new concept, so it's going to assist them in really learning about that and asking any questions that maybe they don't want to ask in those meetings. Again, no specific discussion topics required. Why contribute to an HSA? As we mentioned, the amount that employees are paying out of pocket if they are reaching their deductible or that max out of pocket amount is high. So this is a way for us to assist the employee in helping pay for that deductible if they need it. It does provide a competitive recruitment strategy as well. We've talked about some of the recruitment components. So these are dollars that the employee keeps if they remain unspent. Once the dollars are placed into the HSA, it's a savings plan for the employees, whether they use it or not. So this is something that they can continue to if they're not utilizing those dollars. Newly hired, I did want to note, newly hired employees will be offered the opportunity to earn this incentive contribution, again, as a recruitment strategy, but they will have to follow those same criteria. So we will have an opportunity for them to attend a presentation, or we'll have a recorded presentation, and then they too would have to schedule that appointment. So big question is always, what is this projected to cost? For 2022, we're projecting $340,000. And again, this is assuming every employee and spouse on the plan participates in both pieces of that incentive requirement. And I needed to note my disclaimer, this is always based on a point in time enrollment data. So the number of enrollees actually changes every month. So this was based on a specific point in time where we pulled enrollees so that we could get a general idea of what that cost would look like. It doesn't fluctuate that much that number should change dramatically.
Before you move on, can I
Yes.
ask the question? So on the HSA contribution, there's a maximum amount that that an employee can put into their HSA every year.
Correct.
Does this count against or as part of that maximum?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
So-
so I think it was $8,200 for a family, I think this year. So if we did this, 1,500, if they did all the incentivized actions, 1,500 of that would become, in this case, from the county, and they would only be able to put in 82 or 83, whatever it'll be, minus 15. Okay.
That
Thank
is
you.
correct. And one analysis that I didn't do is how many people are actually contributing that full 82. In general, it's not everyone. So this actually gives them an opportunity to be able to put more dollars in as well. So any other questions before I move on to the next vote of massive information?
Mr. Chair, I have a few questions.
Go ahead, Supervisor Story. Thank you.
Well, all I can really base is my own knowledge on what I had for HSA. And I guess what I'm seeing here is a better benefit than what I recall. I remember I could put up to $2,500 a year into mine, having them take out a certain amount per month to go into that account. And what I used it for, of course, was just to submit prescriptions, deductibles, anything that was medical. It could have been glasses, it could have been toward dental. Up to that $2,500, and it had to be done within the year. This sounds like it's like that, but more so, if I'm hearing it correctly, you're going to give them the benefit of that amount of money. That's money that the county would be paying into this account, but it would have to be utilized somehow through Prevea, but they could also contribute additional amounts of money. Paul, you were saying maybe up to a max of 8,000. And that is money they could use again within the year to cover any other medical types of things that they have. Am I understanding this correctly?
Sort of.
Sort of. Okay. Go for it.
It depends, as the attorney's response, right? So what you described was a flexible spending account.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the ones that expire. A
Okay.
health savings account, this is actually something that we already have, the county's just not contributing to. Employees can contribute and they already
Okay.
are out of their own paychecks. This just is a way for the county to assist them in paying for those deductible type expenses or other medical expenses. And then if they don't use them in the year, that's why it's called a health savings account. It actually stays with them. It is their own private personal account versus the flexible spending account. That's dollars that you're putting in. But again, those are, you're correct, use it or lose it dollars. The HSA is an account that we can put dollars into, or the employee can. The IRS sets the standard of what the max amount is. It usually goes up every year. And then they can take it with them. So this is something they can build up towards for retirement to help offset any costs that they might have while they're working to find alternative means of having healthcare, getting on Medicare, et cetera. So this is really a kind of a savings plan, and also if they're a high utilizer, it's just helping them kind of offset some of those out-of-pocket costs.
But they can't use that money for anything other than something medically related, or you did say
Correct.
retirement, or?
Well, at retirement, that's often, healthcare is often the expense that people are most worried about.
Okay.
So this gives them an option to start building towards. Sorry, Paul.
No, that's okay. I was interfering. And many other organizations that have HSAs as part of their benefits package make contributions to their employees. I believe they're taken out pre-tax.
Pre-tax.
And employees will allow up to a maximum that can be taken out. Federal government, that's the reason they cap it as well. They don't want you putting everything into your HSA and having it tax-free. So that's why there's a cap there. But just to reiterate what Heather said, this savings account stays with you forever. And while there's a maximum you can put into it each year, the total in that savings account can grow to whatever it grows to. If you're an extremely healthy person and hardly ever use any of it, it can, you can build up quite a large savings account. The trick is it can only be used for medical expenses, but it can be used for any legitimate medical expense, including premiums, deductibles, co-pays, and then actual eyeglasses, dental care, etc.
Well, last year we added the cost to their insurance, as I recall, and we didn't give them, if I remember correctly, the exact raise that we were thinking we were going to give them. Am I right so far? I guess I'm wondering, this amount of money that it's going to cost us, do you think the employees would prefer that money in the form of salary, even if it would be taxed, or would they really prefer this as a benefit, the way you're proposing it?
I think the way we're proposing in Supervisor Story is intended ultimately to bring down our healthcare costs. And if we don't tie this to
Then it goes up.
healthcare, we won't have that effect.
I see. And then it'll go up. And then we'll have to worry about raising the prices again.
A big part of this, and Heather and I have talked this over, she's educated me quite a bit on this stuff, is to try to encourage our employees to look at healthcare the way they look at any other commodity that they purchase. If you shop for a car, you should be shopping for your healthcare. If you're conscious about the cost of your groceries and you choose between brands, you should be doing the same with your healthcare. But the reality is that people tend to go to the same doctor or the same clinic because, well, that's where they've always gone. And they never look, is there a comparable level of care for less cost? So part of what we're trying to do is turn our employees into healthcare consumers that are intelligent and educated, and this is part of that incentive. And the crowd goes quiet.
Well, the only other thing I would add, I guess, is the insurance coverage that they do pay for. It would cover Mayo, it would cover Marshfield, and it would cover Prevea already, or is that going to be an issue?
The HSA, as Heather laid it out here, is going to be tied to this Nearsight clinic, the HSA contribution. Now, there's is that not the case?
That's how they'll earn it.
That's how they earn it.
But
right.
you're correct. The healthcare plan, so the Nearsight clinic is separate from the plan, and we'll talk about that. But yes, it depends on, we have two different plans. There's one that's got a wider network, and then there is the Mayo network. I will share that we are in the process of reviewing the plan and how that is all set up as well. So a lot more benefit information is to come. This is kind of step one. But you're correct. The healthcare plan does cover, depending on which plan they elect, is going to determine what's in network and out of network, but they can choose.
Okay. Thanks for all the answers.
Of course. Let me know if any other questions come up. And all right, you ready? Nearsight clinics and direct pay clinics. They're the same thing. Some people refer to them as direct pay clinics or DPCs. Some people refer to them as Nearsight clinics. I will be honest, this is something that I've had several employees approach me on and ask if we're considering this. And then I also have several supervisors ask if this is something we were considering. So what is a Nearsight clinic or a direct pay clinic? I don't know if people are familiar with it or if anyone has used one. Really, it's an established clinic. It's usually located obviously near the employer that offers independent medical care at transparent pricing. The clinic and the employer partner together to educate employees to come up with ways to reduce and avoid unnecessary urgent and emergent visits, as well as offering referrals. Sorry, I'm being blocked. Referrals, tests, and procedures. So if somebody does go there and it's something that the Nearsight clinic or direct pay clinic can't offer, they're working with the employee to get them the best possible option. I'll get into that a little bit more. So what types of services, this list is not an all-inclusive list. I just wanted to share that it's not just your primary care, go in for a checkup, and that's all that you cover. It is a wide range of services that these clinics can offer. So your wellness care, your well child checks, your adult physicals, your sports physicals, college sports physicals, your immunizations, any routine annual labs. And they're offering these services at a dramatically reduced rate. Acute care is also something that they do cover. So if you think you have a bladder infection, ear infection, bronchitis, sinus infection, and being switched. Okay, thank you. Skin biopsies, sore throats. You can go in for those things. But then they can also assist with some of the chronic conditions that individuals have. ADHD, anxiety, asthma, depression, high blood pressure, if you're having sleep issues. So there's a whole list of services that employees would then be able to start utilizing at this Nearsight clinic. So what are the advantages? Why did I start looking into this? Well, employees have access to any Reform Medicine location, any Nearsight, and I'm going to use quotes, any Nearsight clinic location. So there is one in Menominee. So if individuals wanted to go to the one in Menominee, but we wanted to be cognizant of the fact that perhaps people are driving from someplace else, and this is something their families can also utilize. So I personally drive from Eau Claire. There is a Reform Medicine in Eau Claire. They're looking at one in Chippewa. There's one in Chippewa right now designated to the Chippewa School District. They may expand that, but there is also one in Hudson. So there are multiple locations at this point. There's no surprise charges for the employee. So I know I personally have gone to an appointment and thinking I am going in for one thing. They ask me a question, I answer it, it gets coded one way, and the next thing I know, I have a couple $100 bill coming in the mail. There's no surprise charges. Everything is completely transparent. Preventative visits are of no charge. Problem-focused visits, going in for a sore throat, those kinds of things. If it's not tied to a wellness check or a preventative visit, then there will be a $10 fee assessed. That's because we have an HSA, and there's laws around having HSAs. However, if somebody goes in for a preventative visit and then says, and I have a sore throat and an earache, it's no charge because it was a preventative visit. So sometimes it may cost less than what the employee expects. There's greatly reduced lab fees to the plan. So a standard lipid panel, A1C and CMP, whatever those letters all mean, would be less than $15 to the plan. Right now, our plan is being charged a few $100s for standard labs. They just pass through their costs to us, which is actually absorb that. It's less than $15 to have those labs done, and we're being charged a couple $100 to a few $100s. Reform Medicine works with the employees for the lowest cost best care option. So we provide them with our health plan. We provide them with who's in network and out of network. They build that into their system, and they work to figure out if a referral is needed with the employee, determine the best place that the employee is comfortable with and that works for the plan. They partner with HR to provide education on health topics. I know that's something I've talked about, just really getting out there periodically and providing education, consumerism, how to shop for healthcare. We will be monitoring this for effectiveness and partnerships, figuring out what education topics maybe we need based on what people are visiting for. Telemedicine is available as well, no extra charge. This is a big one, and probably one of my favorite parts, and that's the same day or next day care appointments, and that's a guarantee. So if we partner with them and an employee needs to get in same day or next day, appointments are reserved for our employees to be able to do that. I personally have not had that experience at alternative medical facilities, but I can share I've used Reform myself on things that I felt like were urgent and was able to get in same day or next day. They do offer 24/7 phone access for urgent issues. It's one of their doctors and or nurses on call. They offer a medical weight loss program as part of the partnership with them. And they really do act as stewards of our plan. They're working with the employees to make their best decisions for health. They want to look at the overall health of the employees, but then also work with Dunn County to reduce costs to our plan. Ooh, it moved. So it is included with the health plan for those that are enrolled. That's our proposal. We're not going to charge extra if people are on our plan, but I was excited to hear that we can also offer it to those who are not enrolled and charge it's $55 per member per month for 2022. So an employee can supplement a spouse's plan if they're on their spouse's plan, but they really want to be able to access our direct pay clinic or Nearsight clinic. They can purchase into that and not be on our health plan. Part-time employees that maybe don't have access to any other health care, they're just looking for an option to at least be able to receive that annual care. They could also enroll themselves. They can choose just themselves. They can enroll family members. It's really kind of a la carte for them. And we can offer it if we choose to seasonal and limited term employees if we wanted to do that and if they are interested. So it's really another great benefit, setting us apart from a recruiting standpoint as well.
Let me interpose here. We have begun to experience people stepping away or turning down offers of employment, limited or even permanent, on the basis of healthcare. I was struck by that fact that one employee in particular, I'm thinking about, she'll go unnamed, was looking for healthcare, but they were an LTE, and we just don't have anything to offer them.
Yes, and so this really does offer at least something. It gives them an option. If there's emergent care, broken arm or something like that, that's not something that they would be able to assist with. But so estimated potential cost savings, and of course this comes with all sorts of disclaimers. It's based on claims data for what we did was we requested the claims data for the areas that were listed on the previous slide that reform would really possibly be able to make an impact to. And these savings also assume that every single one of those claims then went to reform instead of were applied to the plan, which is why we feel like having employees introduced to the plan and building that relationship up front is going to help us get employees to continue to utilize reform. But the overall cost savings, and they included their per member rate that we would have to pay to partner with them. There's a potential savings of about $457,000 per year to the plan based on that claims data. And keep in mind that was January of 2019 to January of 2021. 2020 was a kind of an odd year. We saw kind of fewer visits to the doctor because of COVID. And so really the 2019 data, we did see a higher potential cost savings. All claims related to labs and immunizations, if you look, 460, well, almost 470,000 is what was paid into, is what was paid by Medica on those types of claims. And that is just, that's just included in our partnership. So if somebody goes for those things, that's no cost to the employee. So what is the projected cost of this? We are recommending budgeting $435,000 for 2022 as a conservative amount. Obviously, our goal is to get as much utilization into the direct pay clinic or the Nearsight clinic to drive other costs of the plan down over time. And so we're hoping that the two are going to start to offset. This is something that we need to monitor to make sure it's starting to work. But I've talked to several of my counterparts. I know a lot of private sector organizations that are doing this, and they've seen huge impacts to their health plan. So the total projected 2022 cost of the two proposals combined is $775,000. So I can only imagine that the question then is, well, okay, where does that come from? And that was the question Keith and I both asked. And so we started looking into it. The workers' compensation fund balance currently is at $2.2 million as of the end of 2020. The recommended balance, and this was some extensive research was done on this. We did a historical data review of 5 and 10-year historical data for workers' comp claims. We discussed it with the workers' comp carrier, and then some training seminars were attended. And really that recommended balance is right around that $775,000 mark based on all of that data. So our recommendation, and I've worked jointly with Keith on this, is to transfer $1 million from the workers' compensation fund balance in the 2022 budget process to the health insurance fund to help pay for these two proposals to get them started. This would need a resolution in order to add these benefits as well. I do want to note that, so we would have to draft that resolution. So that is our request. We're asking that you review and recommend to the board the addition of these two benefit proposals for 2022, provided that, again, including that HSA contribution, and provided that the certain criteria are met that we outlined. Questions on all of it now, but specifically the Nearsight claim.
Chairman Barlow, if you start, go ahead.
Well, I guess a statement, I think 775,000 balance in our health, what you want to call health fund, is way too little. You know, I remember times when we used a lot in 1 year and we ended up in problems. I think it should be, you know, 2 million or better. But so that's a statement. My question is, if it's going to cost 775,000, why are we recommending taking $1 million out?
Okay, I think the statement and the question sort of go together. If I can, if that would be
Correct.
okay. So
They're
okay.
both deal with the fund.
Okay, so it's the workers' compensation fund, not the health fund. So we're requesting, it's at 2.2 million right now, the workers' comp fund.
Okay.
So we're
All right.
requesting to take $1 million from that because the health insurance fund actually needs some replenishment anyway. Okay, and so it's 775,000 for this proposal plus some additional funds to help rebuild the health fund that you're
We're
talking
taking
about.
out of the workers' comp fund
Yes.
and putting it in the health fund. I
Correct.
wasn't listening to
And
everything
so,
you
and
said.
then that still leaves 1.2 million in the workers' comp fund. And it's really recommended at 775,000 based on our analysis.
So what is our health fund right now?
I don't have that.
I didn't bring that with
Why
me
not?
on that, but sorry,
I
I
should have
can't anticipate
anticipated
every
that.
question. Yeah, we missed the mark on that one, but I can tell you it's been trending down. And
You're
that's
right,
been-
that's what I remember, and,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, I
Um,
was thinking of my question before I listened to your answer there at the end, I'm sorry. But, yeah, I'm concerned of our health fund, and I'd like to
Yes.
know what that is,
I will get that out.
and, yeah, I think that's great thinking to take it out of the workman's comp fund. I sure never thought of that. And,
That's credit to Keith.
And if I can, Mr. Chair,
go ahead.
certainly in along those lines, that has been why this has taken so long. You know, there were the financial pieces. There was all of the technical pieces as far as all these interconnections. From a financial perspective, it's an investment also in how are we going to break this trend on our health fund and the drawdown, the claims. It really is. And then how can we finance it? The workers' compensation fund has had success because we've had good programs in place. We've had good luck with claims, but yet we are still budgeting conservatively to make sure that the county isn't put in the position where it has experience in the health fund where all of a sudden they're struggling to pay for claims. But now we're seeing that on the health insurance fund side. And what do? Industry trends are to look at these types of arrangements and the contributions to incentivize. The benefit on the annual contribution side, that's approximately half or thereabouts of this, but that's an annual decision by the county board. This is a start. I know in the HSA that we implemented in my prior job, we started at a 600, 1,200 contribution, but it was also phased out after that because it was intended to be an initial investment, and then annually we review that to see the impact on that and the benefit. It wasn't to lock in that every year you're going to spend that kind of money as a city or as a county. So
Yeah. I do have a question on the plan though. I didn't quite understand how they make their money. Do we pay $55 for everybody that's enrolled in it? Is that how they come up with enough money so they can charge less?
Yes, yes, we pay per member per month. A
Okay,
fee.
so if it's a family, do we pay for like a family of 6? Do we pay for all 6 then?
It would be all 6, yep. So that number based on enrollment is, I'm gonna find the slide because I'm not gonna try and pretend like I know. The membership year 1 cost would be $351,084, 351,084, 351. So that's the per member cost, and then the anticipated pass-through costs for labs and immunizations is about 82, which is where the total year 1 cost is 433,000. And we did that based on the number of belly buttons on the plan at a point in time as
Okay.
well.
And just refresh me, what's a family
Oh boy.
plan is about 1,800 or 2,200? I can't remember. I know it's quite expensive. but-
I'm gonna go right around that 2,000 mark.
Okay,
I would have to get the exact numbers, and then it's gonna depend on which plan, but yeah.
all right, thank you.
And that's where, I'm sorry. So anybody that wants to come into the plan because they're not contributing into the health plan, that's why they can elect however many belly buttons they want to add at $55 per.
So if I may,
Mhm.
so the 351 is based on current members who are enrolled in our HSA plan now.
Yep.
This
Well,
isn't a total
not-
county employee number,
No.
just, okay.
Yep.
So, and it's $55 per month per member, or that's $36 per year per person, though not per family. It's again 5 people or 2 people. But that's continuing.
Yes,
That's forever,
that is for the length of the time that we
right?
maintain
In
the
a sense, I
plan.
mean, yeah,
Yep.
if we stay in the plan, it's going to be at least 351 or whatever that they may.
They may
charge in the
increase the
future.
rates. Yep.
And that's going to be along with the fact we're still going to have some sort of a plan for all the other expenses, right?
Yes.
I mean, like you were saying, if somebody goes in there and I need an MRI, they're not going to get it here,
They're not going to get that at
right? And if I
reform.
need to get any other special treatments. Now, one question, and I guess it's not a major thing, but in that list was orthopedic.
In for one, and it was just a lot of stretching, and they were able to evaluate, and it wasn't a broken bone personally, but you know, I will say they're willing to come and answer any questions if anybody has them as well. They're very transparent in what they do.
And then there's a startup cost in addition to the 435.
Nope, that's
That
it.
is, in a sense, the initial amount of money we would have to pay during, including 351.
The 351 is built into that.
Into that. Okay.
Yep, that is the total
Yeah,
that
was
we're
my-
projecting
because
for the first
When I
year.
saw startup costs, I thought, well, are we buying X-ray machines?
No.
Or what's, you
No.
know, what's going on? Thank you.
Tell me if I have this right. The HSA contribution plan would be a 1 year, a one-time?
That would be reviewed each year. So if the committee chose to do another contribution in 2023, we would probably put some other parameters into that for them to earn it. We would just do that review each year with the benefit plan.
Okay, because if I get this correctly, the primary goal of this is the incentive to get the people to participate. And once that participation reaches whatever maximum level it will reach, then we could, what? Continue to contribute with other incentives?
Yeah,
or-
there's other things we may, we'll come up with other programs, provided we can pay for it. We'll
Right.
come up with other incentives, other things that we want them to do to increase their
Use this
health, their
incentive for
usage.
Right.
other outcomes.
The
Yeah.
initial one, that,
Yes.
you know, in our initial plan, the one that occurred to me was, we have people who don't do an annual checkup. This would incentivize, you know, hey, I've got to go an appointment, I'll do an annual. Maybe we find something that's brewing that could be caught early, and it ends up saving us for health insurance tens of thousands of dollars because they got that early detection. That's the kind of thing that we want people. This could roll into incentivizing weight loss programs, diabetes control programs. There's all kinds of things that we can do to ultimately to increase the health of our employees, their participation in their own health, and driving down our costs.
And I understand it, but in terms of the plan that we're looking at right now,
This
this is specifically designed to incentivize
Yes.
their introduction to
Yep.
enrollment into this program.
Absolutely.
Going forward, then, we could anticipate if things work well, that the savings we realize from the situation you well described would be more than enough to pay the cost of the program. And ultimately, we and the participants could save money.
That's the goal. Because our health plan, the goal is to have fewer costs,
Right.
fewer
by
high
those
costs.
Annual checkups.
Yep.
And frankly, you don't have to convince me. I've got all kinds of evidence in my own family about have people been a little bit more attentive to their health. They could have said. Those, I just wanted to make sure I understood clearly. The Reform Clinic in Menominee is up on North Broadway, is that correct?
No, it's in the old health department on Wilson Street.
It
The government center, the old government center, basement,
is, really.
where you spent many fun hours at committees.
Memories. I've got pictures. I do.
I bet.
Okay, those are my major questions. Again, presumably to carry this, because I'm looking at not just this year, where we could pay these costs using that $1 million from the Workman's Comp Fund, which I'm a little nervous about, but that's a different story. But going forward, we could expect to pay the cost of the reform medicine program through savings in claims that we now are paying, at least part.
That is the
And
goal.
any continued incentive in terms of contributions to HSAs, we could tie to whatever outcomes we want it. We can stack it down. We can do that on an annual.
Just to give them a chance, Sheila or John, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
John Calabrese, go ahead.
Thank you. If I understand correctly, this can only be used at the Reform Medicine clinics. Has anybody seen the presentation that the employees are required to participate in? Or is there an outline of what that entails?
I would work directly with them on what that would look like. I haven't asked them to put that together, given we're this early in the process.
Okay. I'm just wondering, and then the second stipulation for the employees to receive this is that they set up an appointment. And so will there be sort of like you've explained here so well, like for them to let them know, like this can be an appointment for anything, like go ahead and make it. Will they know that that's or what they're making that for if they feel completely healthy?
Yes, that will be clear when we roll out the plan in the open enrollment meetings and as we start talking about the direct pay clinic or the Nearsight clinic and earning those dollars, the incentives that, you know, exactly what I said here. It's really just to go and meet and learn about the clinic and meet the people at the clinic, understand the process. So we will definitely have that in the presentation.
Okay, thank you. And just one more. Do the reform medicine people is there a number that they need to receive in terms of number of employees or amount of money from this program that they've set a level at, or is it just you're going to do this and hopefully their presentation works and people start to use them a lot?
Well, we're paying the per member per month rate. And so they're guaranteed that if people use it or not. So that's some of the risk, which is why we're trying to educate employees to get there. If our number of enrollees goes down, that's fine. We don't have a set number.
Okay.
They have not given us a certain number that we have to have enrolled or anything like that. No.
All right. Thank you. That's
You're
all.
welcome.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, shoot a story.
just to follow up, I mean, I am getting from this that the main purpose is, even though we say it is also to educate our staff and our people that are utilizing the plan for better health, it truly is to bring down our healthcare costs so that we can, you know, not spend as much on healthcare as we have been spending and keep that fund in check. So what I'm wondering though is if they get in this plan and you do your analysis next year and you find that it's been an exceptionally busy year where there were several serious illnesses that weren't, you know, that happened and now our costs are up again, are we going to take it away from them?
My advice would be no, especially not after year one. So if we identify high risk areas in health, but we catch them early and it causes some increase or a spike in year one, long-term healthcare is tricky. So you have to look long-term. If it's preventing something in the future, I don't know that I would take it away after year one. I think we have to give it a little bit of time and then evaluate at the end of maybe year 2 or 3 before we make that determination. If our utilization is still really, really down and we put all of our efforts into it and we haven't even identified, you know, those risks, then I think we would need to take a look at that. But at this point today, I would say I would come to the committee and not recommend discontinuing it right away.
And I'll add on that, you know, this is an experiment. It could fail. But it's not something that you'll know whether or not it's a failure for 2-3 years, maybe. You've got to build up. It takes time to change people's habits and attitudes when it comes to healthcare. And you've got to account for that. That having been said, there'll be an annual assessment. There'll be annual evaluation. How is it going? Because otherwise we won't know what more do we need to do? Where do we need to change our emphasis? How we might need to change our messaging or the encouragement that we're trying to put out there. But I agree with Heather. We probably need to get 2-3 years under our belt before we can make an assessment of the value of the program.
And Mr. Chair, if I can add too,
Go ahead, Steve.
it might be an experiment, but this has been in the industry for years. Multiple entities, private and public, have utilized this and very successfully in some cases. But yeah, both are right. It is subject to, it does take time. I've been through this historically over my career, and it has had a positive impact, but it does take time, depending on the culture and the group that you're working with.
Would you want that built into the resolution that you would want to give it a certain number of years before it's reviewed again so that there's some kind of a commitment?
I personally would, but I think that's up
I'm sorry, what was that question?
if we would like to build into the resolution a certain number of year commitment.
I would recommend against that.
Okay.
I think we want to maintain the flexibility. For all we know, there could be the possibility our finances entirely come crashing down around our ears.
Mhm.
We do not want to have locked ourselves up legislatively into a program that, hey, we'd love to see if it works out. We just don't have any money.
I would just be interested in maybe some idea of how the staff would feel about it. I would hope that they would embrace it and that it could be utilized, but I'm just not, I'm still questioning it, I guess, in my mind as to whether or not it would be a good thing or not.
It's going to take an effort. We know that.
Yeah.
Supervisor Tripp?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would recommend that the resolution contain language about reviewing the plan annually.
Absolutely.
But I would agree with the others that I think it would be a mistake to put any kind of a termination date in. That kind of locks us up. And one other piece of advice I would suggest, if we're paying $55 per family member per month, I think we ought to invest in a family planning clinic. Oh, don't you think? We could say, yeah.
Got any ideas for the
Buttons.
answer on that? Supervisor Tripp?
I only wrote down
I
required.
don't know.
Yeah.
Is that something needed in the Tripp family?
Not anymore. We are being recorded, by the way.
I was thinking that myself. I have one, just one further question. You're reviewing, currently you're telling us already, other plans, are parts of our healthcare plan. Would you or Keith anticipate we would get any change in rates consideration if we in fact take this away from our current suppliers of healthcare? In other words, we're really setting up and funding in a separate plan to pull people away from our current more expensive providers. And so at the same time, that's going to take away a certain amount of, I'm going to call it steady business that they are in a sense enjoying at this point from us. Would that have any, you think that have any reflection on the fact that they may up the rates for what they're providing?
For the health insurance premium rates?
Well,
No.
for the help from the health providers. I mean, I know we have a discounted rate coming from Mayo now and so forth.
No, I don't anticipate, well, we do have a plan where we get an increased discounted rate from Mayo. Cautiously, I will say that given Mayo's higher costs in the area, I don't know that that discounted rate gets us quite where we thought it was going to. So we will still receive discounts depending on what network we choose. When we redo the healthcare plan review, that discount may be reduced, but I don't think that that will impact, I don't think that'll have enough of an impact, especially if we can get employees using the direct pay clinic. What we've seen from a health insurance standpoint is if you implement something like this, third-party administrators and health insurance carriers kind of prefer to see something like this because then the claims tend to be lower coming in. So they tend to be more supportive of moving in this type of a direction, especially in this area because of our costs being so high.
Thank you. Anything else? Supervisor Tripp?
I'm looking at the recommendation at the end of your staff report. It recommends that we recommend for approval the reform medicine plan, and that we recommend the HSA contribution plan. It doesn't say anything about the funding part of that. So I guess I'm asking procedural questions. Do we want to take those two separately? We don't have any motions on this yet, do we?
You do.
Oh, do
You
we?
have a motion on the floor for both,
Oh, okay.
made by Chairman Bartlett and seconded by Supervisor Tripp.
How quickly
Been a
we
long
forget.
time.
It's been a long time. Clarify the funding mechanism for transferring the money out of.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you speak into your mic?
Yes,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. The funding mechanism, is that a part of or not this recommendation?
And I can speak to that if you could, Mr. Chair. No, this is really to direct us towards the 22 budget, and this gives us the direction that we should include that into the funding mix.
Okay.
We just, as part of the presentation, the obvious question is how are we going to pay for it? If
Right.
this is approved, then we will build that into the budget process and make that recommendation through the budget process.
Thank you, and I apologize for my short memory.
That's okay. I glad you asked that to straighten that, because I was gonna ask it. Because I thought about think about that two-part thing, and we're, talking about drafting a resolution, and that part hadn't come up to be part of it. It's going to be asked, and I guess we probably should have. What do you think, Keith or Paul? I mean, should we have both resolutions going at this point?
Well, what's immediately in front of you is just to approve us to proceed.
Right.
What will come subsequently will be tied into the budget,
Okay.
the annual budget.
Well, I guess my thinking is that key statement and your statement about the health, financial health of the current medical plan. And, are we in jeopardy there without making some of a transfer? Or are we okay for a while?
No, we're okay for a while.
No, we're fine right now.
Okay.
And we're still finalizing the 2020 audit. We still have some claims that come through. Yeah, again, but we're still, claims do trickle in. I can tell you, claims come in groves sometimes. And, it's just an ongoing challenge. But yeah, and that will be part of the budget process. So
Right.
yeah, Mr. Miller is right that at this point, we don't need to lock in the funding source on this. This just gives us the direction to proceed forward and to build it into the 22 budget process.
Right.
If something falls apart on us, obviously we'd have to come back with an update on that during the budget process.
And so in our recommendation and in our voting today, if we, I guess, are you asking if we move ahead with this, that we are going to move ahead and establish, or are we going to hear from reform before we actually establish that?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Heather. What we're asking the committee to do is to tell staff, build this into the budget as part of the benefits plan, as part of the cost. Build it into the budget for 22, and that's what we'll
We will
proceed with.
continue to build this.
You got it.
Okay.
And we'll still have to approve the budget.
You still have to approve the budget, absolutely.
Is everyone understanding of that before we go ahead and vote? All right. All those in favor then of proceeding with the recommendation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, fine. Thank you all for a great discussion. Heather and Keith and Paul and everyone for filling us in with all the information. Next, approve remote work policy. And again, this was something you had presented to us somewhat before, Heather, correct?
Yes, we started discussing this at the last meeting, and I believe there were two questions. It's going to share with me here. So there were two questions that were raised and asked to be brought back at this meeting, who is liable if the computer equipment is taken home and damaged? So we reached out to IT, and CIO Dan Dunbar is here if there's additional questions on this. But my understanding is that it's no different than if it was here and damaged. It's still the county's responsibility. Am I articulating that correct, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, if the computer's not working, somebody's got to get it going, and I think around the industry, for the most part, you would rely on the employer to provide that replacement device. So I mean, there's certainly risk involved in that, but you also have a risk of an employee breaking their computer, and you have to wait a couple of months for them to save up enough money in order to buy the replacement. So I mean, it's really not feasible to expect that necessarily.
If it happens, it's going to be accidental. If it's not accidental, if somebody's using their county laptop as a soccer ball, that's a performance issue that we addressed in another area.
And if I'm not mistaken, we do carry warranties on some of our equipment as well, maybe not all.
So we carry a warranty, but that wouldn't cover damage in that aspect. There are plans that you can get, which they typically call accidental damage protection. It's insurance, right? So you're going to be paying a certain amount of that, and so we have a replacement schedule that's built up where we're saving up money in order to save that, which we're essentially using as a self-insurance way of managing those costs. So we don't have contingency fund requests for broken computers. That money is already built into that replacement.
Make a motion on this?
You do not.
Also move.
All right. Second, to approve remote work policy.
Supervisor Calabrese.
Second.
John, thank you very much. John Calabrese. All right. Heather, as she was saying, there was a couple of things that we asked to be addressed. And Mr. Dunbar has addressed the fact that we have, in a sense, really a current policy. And then again, if somebody would be exhibiting some sort of reckless behavior in the terms of taking care of that computer at home, that again is, as Mr. Miller said, is a performance issue and would be addressed appropriately. The other thing was,
It looks like, how will the success of the program be measured? And so we built into the procedure or the policy that, you know, you really have to establish what those program measurements are and expectations before you approve an ongoing remote work arrangement. Supervisors are expected to provide clear performance goals and expectations that are to be evaluated with weekly in-person meetings. We are asking that employees be in the office at least one day a week to have those in-person meetings. It's also required that there's the regular interaction by phone and by email, so the communication should be maintained. And again, those performance measures established up front. One of the items, you know, we haven't drafted the full procedure. We were waiting for the approval, and then we'll put the procedure together. But I did include a really rough draft of the remote working agreement that we've started putting together. It's not in final form, but did want to at least share with the committee what a piece of that would look like. And so that initial discussion, making sure that the employee understands their expectations, the supervisor understands their expectations, there's that communication before it is even put in place. And then really remembering that if somebody is not meeting those expectations, we can discontinue the remote work arrangement at any time. So I don't know, are there additional questions on either of those items or the policy in and of itself?
hearing none, all those in favor of approving the policy as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, passes. Review the vouchers. It's the financial vouchers. Are there any questions or concerns as the vouchers are printed. Supervisor Jim Tripp.
I have a question about, it's on the very first page of the vouchers, information technology, COVID response expenditure, I don't know. Anyway, $40,000 for telecom. Just would be interested to know how, what is it and how that relates.
So
This is information technology.
59, 5,000. Third from the bottom.
Okay.
yeah, so that $40,000 is the cost to wire the video project over in the court. The rest of that was covered by a grant, but the grants would not cover the wiring piece of it. It was part of the rules around that, so that was covered as an IT expense.
That grant was 85,000 or something like that. Bought the
that's a
equipment?
good one. I wanted to say bigger than that. but
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
250,
over, I think it was
250, yeah.
130 or 135,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
And that paid for the equipment?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Then I have one other question, and it is from the rec park. 524050, this is, I think, page 13 of the vouchers. And the payee is John Deere Financial. I'm gonna guess that's a credit card?
That's their charge account thing at Tractor Central.
Okay. I assumed
So
it
that
was,
would be a piece of it.
yeah, I
card
assumed
or
it was something
something,
like that.
but-
Repair and maintenance.
Yeah.
That's it, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we have a motion to approve the vouchers. Chairman Bartlett. I will second. The amount that we are approving is 67 or 867,845.80. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Are approved. Go back to now number 9. Announcements and our next meeting date and next meeting time. We have a request to move up our start time in our next meeting to 3 o'clock rather than 3:30 to allow for some transitional time for our IT department, because they also have a monthly meeting scheduled at 5:30, which they're considering moving back to 6 o'clock. So is that an issue for anyone to start at 3 o'clock rather than 3:30? No, but that will work. All right. So our next scheduled meeting then will be June 24th at 3 o'clock. Let everyone know I myself will be out of the area on, I hope, a vacation. As my wife called me just before I got here, that took care of a couple days. Anyway, we'll adjourn, and I have notified Mr. Lino and Mr. Miller well also, and hopefully Assistant Chair Lino will be able to operate that, chair that meeting. Any other announcements pertaining to this committee? All right, hearing none, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.